Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Zenith, that podcast where the effectiveness of this crew decreases by 1.6% every working period because this week we watched Death Watch.
Written by Chris Boucher.
Directed by, oh shoot, I don't actually remember, Gerald Blake.
And aired on March 24th, 1980. Bringing the Blake back to Blake 7.
Well, won't have to wait too long for that.
So we're almost done.
Yeah, Blake is just only 3 months away. Can you believe it? Like Blake the episode, not Blake. Blake the episode.
Well, you never know about that. But yeah, I was thinking about that recently. Is we're almost done.
Yes.
Well, no, I mean it's going to be kind of bittersweet. I think Blake 7 is a show that overall.
Blake 7 is a show that's kept me up an extra night every week editing a podcast.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, well, same here in terms of doing the notes, which probably doesn't take as long, but, Blake 7 is a show that I think works as a 52-episode show.
Well, I guess that's something we'll have to talk about after Series D, because Series D could just completely suck.
And some people say it does. Some people say that this era, like the end of Series C, is the best Blake 7 ever gets. And I don't know about that.
Considering neither of us really liked this story, even though I think it does actually bring up a lot of interesting things that I want to talk about, I didn't really think it was that great.
Oh yeah, I mean,
we're gonna get called out for that. I can already hear the ding of the email that's going to arrive in our inbox between this week and next week that says, how could you guys possibly dislike Death Watch? Death Watch is one of the best Blake 7 episodes ever created, and you guys are just wrong. And I'm not going to listen to your podcast anymore because you guys are just dumb. And to that I would say that's your right, but I disagree respectfully.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with that. I think this episode brings up a lot of interesting concepts, but doesn't do justice to them.
Well, let's kind of explain the plot, because some of the things I want to talk about don't really make sense without the plot. So it begins
with kind of a confusing intro for Blake 7.
Because we meet Dita. First off, what the hell? That is quite possibly the most obscure and weird as hell name that Blake 7 has ever given us.
Well, it's interesting because this is sort of like Callie and Zelda, right? Where it's Steven Pacey playing both Dita and Del, and which was the same case with Jan Chappell playing Callie and Zelda. And there was another instance of that this season, wasn't there?
It was the High Priest and Callie. Both played by Jan Chappell.
Yep.
But that's actually what I wanted to really hit on here, is that I've realized that Series C is actually about family and brutally murdering your family. And that sounds like facetious, but we never met any of the Liberator crew's prior attachments before Series C. And then in Series C we get Hal, who's Dana's dad.
Father, yep.
We get Callie's sister. We get Avon's long-lost lover, and we get Terrence's brother. And then they all get brutally murdered at the end of their stories. Although Zelda less so, because she does the freaking Adric thing and decides to stay behind. But I think that's really interesting. That I never really realized this until now when we get Terrence's brother, of all people. That, now we're meeting all of a sudden all of the Liberator crew's family, but then they all just get killed by the end of the story. It's really making the Liberator crew even more tragic and lonely, and I think possibly reinforcing something that they're trying to bring up, that the Liberator crew kind of is a family to each other.
Sure. Wasn't there a line about that in this episode? Something between Villa and Dana, or maybe I'm just making that up, but
possibly.
I don't remember.
Possibly, although I didn't write it down if there was.
No, I didn't either.
And when you really think about it, it's we had the only person whose prior attachment we haven't really met is Villa. She, like I said, Callie's sister, Dana's father, Terrence's brother.
We got a little bit.
We get Avon's long lost lover, who's not a family member, but they were.
Yeah, I mean, or prior relations.
Yeah.
And now that you mentioned that, we did get prior relations in Series A and B, but only for Blake.
Yeah, because we got Blake's cousin, Inga.
And we got his sort of backstory with him being the leader of this rebel group and stuff. But yeah, that's it. I mean,
we did get the one. There was one instance that it wasn't Blake, and it was Jenna with what's his name in Bounty.
Yeah, yep. But we also got Blake's sister and brother.
Right.
And, this all comes back to Blake, right? Is like, why is this happening now that Blake is gone?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, in universe, why are these people encountering all their relatives and, like, prior relations all of a sudden now that Blake's gone? I think it just drives home the point that Blake was so
maniacal,
intent on destroying the Federation that everything revolved around Blake. Like, I think Blake was actually a bit of a narcissist, potentially.
Sure.
But I just think it's really interesting how there's this theme of family that's actually been running through, like, Series C. Like,
yeah, I never even thought of that. Series C, I think, has the most the episodes that I want to rewatch the most.
Yes, it also has the episodes I want to rewatch the least.
Well, no, I mean, even ones that I thought weren't that great, like Volcano and this one, I do want to rewatch, like knowing now what I know about Series C, like how it brings up family, how it brings up who controls information, those types of things.
Right. So we meet Dita. And it's confusing because he's played by Steven Pacey, and you're like, is this Del? And then the lady comes in and is like, hey, Dita.
Well, even then, though, I didn't know, like, what's, like...
Well, she calls him Dita Terrence, so...
Yeah, but, I mean, I thought, like, all right, have they infiltrated? Because we don't really know where we are yet. So, like, all right, did the Liberator crew, like, infiltrate some base or something? They're, like, playing roles or something?
Right.
I don't know. And, I mean, Dita, like, his design kind of looks like if Del was a greaser or something like that. Because he has, like, huge hair.
And huge sideburns. This
yeah,
lady
I'm curious
kind of,
actually, and I didn't look this up. I don't know if I would be able to find anything if I did. I don't know how is that like a wig or...
Wigs for sideburns?
Yeah, I don't know.
They have wigs for some pretty weird things. So this lady kind of like fake trips and points out this guard, and Dita kills him. Dita sees right through this and realizes it's just a ploy to get him to trust her, and then he kills her when she tries to kill him. We find out later, I think, that this was actually like one of Dita's like trials to becoming champion for the planet. I guess they had
so,
like
yeah.
a tournament going on, and whoever won would be the planet champion. So Dita wins.
Yeah.
Then we get the Liberator, and where it appears like Del has been rummaging around in Avon's closet since he's wearing nice black leather for this episode. But Villa basically comes onto the flight deck, the bridge, and carrying Aurak. Seems to be a blossoming friendship between Aurak and Villa. But he basically says, guys, I've been talking with Aurak. We need a break. We need a break. We need a vacation. Because he comes in, and Villa's like, they're laughing, Aurak. And he's like, yes, that is interesting. And Villa's like, shouldn't they be like at each other's throats? And Aurak's like, yeah, based on everyone's personalities, we should basically be running into the ground. That's when he says like the efficiency of this crew's been decreasing by like 1.6% every single work period.
Well, that'll happen when you don't really have anything to do necessarily. They find things to do.
Well, that'll happen when you have two people vying for control who basically start hating each other's guts.
I guess, yeah. Not Villa. Avon and Tarrant are kind of at each other's throats, which they have been for most of the season, really. Mm-hmm. But it's you get a couple good instances of it in this episode. Well, but they are kind of just like, retired people who are like, wake up and they're like, gee, what am I going to do today?
I don't know why that made me think of this. Probably because Avon wears freaking black leather every week. But here's a fun fact for you. Retirement homes, I've heard...
Are now installing BDSM centers.
No. I've heard this, although I haven't personally confirmed this. So perhaps we'll put a link in the show notes. But I've heard that retirement homes are the places with the highest instances of STDs because there's just really nothing else to do. If you know what I'm saying here.
If you catch my drift.
Now, I've heard this, again, Not officially, like, scientifically confirmed. I didn't go look up a study, but I'm sure you can find one. Yeah. Really curious.
Oh, God.
So basically, Avon's like, so what are you saying, Villa? We need a vacation? And he's like, yes, I think we need a vacation. And Villa's like, I have the perfect place. It's this battle planet.
All right, so they kind of explain what's going on here. These two factions. And one is like something alliance of planets.
The like United Teal Planet Federation. The teal is in there somewhere, like the color teal. So,
and I'm sure that's a name, like not referring to. I think
the other one is like Vendor. No,
yeah, it is Vendor.
Yeah, the Vandor Confederacy, and the other one, I think it's like they
just call it Teal.
They just
short.
Call it Teal, but it's like the United Planets of Teal or something like that.
Right. So these are two entities outside the Federation.
Right. Two like separate, smaller kind of city-state empires, I guess.
Right. I guess these are things that arose after the war.
Yeah, possibly.
Well, I mean, that doesn't really matter actually, but that was just
with the collapse of the Federation.
Yeah. And Servalan's definitely vying for the chance to overthrow anyone she can in this episode with bringing her entire.
Actually, I think they've existed since before the war, because they say that they've been doing this on the planet for like generations, like regularly, sure. and then Avon's like every 20 years is regularly, and they're like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's a good point. So they probably have been around for quite a long time.
Because at the very least, the last time they did this was 20 years ago, which would have been
before the war.
Before the war. Unless the war took 20 years. I mean, I guess we don't really know that.
Given the look of the characters, somehow I doubt that. But hey, you never know.
Anyway,
Villa basically just never age.
Well, like we were saying,
Avon's kind of graying, a
little bit, probably from the stress of running the ship.
I was actually looking up, just coincidentally, I guess, some Series A images, and it's actually like you don't notice it as you watch the show, but if you go back to Series A, like the actors look really young. Mm-hmm. This is just 2 years ago. So, like, I guess just acting in general takes your toll.
Stress will age you too, so it's possible they've been going through some stressful times. Paul Darrow definitely, like, looking at pictures between Series A and Series C, he just looks like he's been through some hard times.
It was mostly Paul Darrow and Michael Keating, really, who, like, look super young in 78 compared to 80.
Like I said, it's entirely possible outside the show, maybe they just had some really stressful personal lives going on, because stress will age you, like, pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
But basically, like Keon was saying, these two planets elect champions, and these champions should basically fight to the death when they go to war. The champions fight to the death, and the champion that wins is the side that wins the war. So
yeah, and this is actually like, because people have, I'm sure, studied this, but I've also just seen this as like both jokes, like online, and like maybe not so much jokes of like people saying, don't you wish like when countries go to war that the president or the presidents or like the leaders of the countries would just duke it out and whoever wins would win. And like there's so much wrong with that.
But I mean, even that, like I've seen it as a concept, like I've seen it as a concept on a show or a movie before, and unfortunately I'm completely blanking on where I've seen this concept before, because I know I've seen it before. Interesting that you mentioned presidents, because on the stress thing, if you want to see like extreme examples of like how stress ages a person, like Obama was like a pretty young, healthy senator when he became president, and then like when he left office, he looks just like this beat down man. Like if you look at a picture side by side of Obama, like his first day in office and like his final day in office, it's really obvious how stress can age a person.
Yep.
Like he looks like he aged like 30 years in 8. So anyway, basically Villa's like, it's like a carnival. Plus, if we go there, it's not like the Federation can attack us, because part of the rules is that anybody who watches gets protection by the Teal and Vandor fleets.
Yeah, because the Federation and the Liberator crew are both known to follow the rules at all times. And I actually mentioned this later on. Avon's like, so Taryn, are you okay with breaking the rules and ignoring all like regulations and laws? Terran was
Even
like,
though
"I
they
was
follow
born."
all the laws to like do what they do.
Yeah, well, what is he talking about when he says that?
I don't know.
I think he's just talking about Callie psychically feeding Terran information.
That's probably
which doesn't
it.
even really help because Terran just ignores it.
Whatever. They basically, this whole story is this huge build-up to the end.
This was my problem with it too. Is it's like 48 minutes of build-up, 2 minutes of payoff.
Well, I'd say 5 minutes of payoff because I did think the end of the actual like battle between Dita and the Vandor put up somebody named Vinny.
And this is why I thought of like Dita as a greaser because like he's going up against this guy who doesn't look like a greaser, but his name's Vinny.
I didn't even think of that. Basically, they go to this planet.
Sharks from West Side Story. Grease.
Yeah, from Greece.
Or the Outsiders.
The tunnel snakes from Fallout. Tunnel snakes rule. So also, while Dita's being transported to this battle planet, I don't remember the name of the planet that they use for this.
I don't either.
He's talking about how there's 3 arbiters who like oversee the fairness of the battle. There's each side, so Vandor and Teal put up their own arbiter, and then there's a neutral arbiter. And Dita basically says he knows nothing about Vinny, unlike the battles he fought on Teal. Like those battles, he knew everything about his opponent because it was someone from Teal. So he said all of his knowledge of the battle has to come from his knowledge of the arbiters, because the knowledge of the arbiters was like public information. So he was trying to get his like coach, I guess, or his sponsor, kind of very Hunger Games-esque, to tell him who the neutral arbiter is. And then we cut to picture of Servalan on a Liberator view screen, and Villa or Avon is like, Servalan's the neutral arbiter? Yeah, right, neutral.
They find out that Servalan has also brought in an entire fleet of her ships for quote-unquote protection.
Right.
And she doesn't
They do a couple like time-wasty things in this build-up area, because we have Del who teleports over to Dita's ship, and he meets with the sponsor, and he's like, hey, I want to see Dita now. And the guy's like, no, he'll only see you after the battle. And Del's like, there may not be an after the battle. And the guy's like, well, Dita doesn't want to see you right now.
Right. A lot of this stuff, I think, is just filler, whether it's in the sense that, like, hey, the episode's underrunning and we need to put more in, or just stuff that's not exactly consequential. It is like a lot of good Chris Boucher dialogue, people being nasty to each other, so that's always nice.
There's another scene where Avon teleports over and confronts Servalan and is like, hey, you've got a whole fleet waiting outside. And she's like, yeah, just standard procedure. And Avon's like, yeah, right.
Kisses Servalan again, and Servalan says she doesn't think of Avon as an enemy, but thinks of him rather as a future ally.
Right.
Future friend, actually, she says.
Which is interesting, I think.
And honestly,
foreshadowing, maybe?
I think the Dana and Servalan dynamic in this episode was more interesting than anything else. Because I've been waiting for this, and I hope this somehow culminates next week.
Well, there's this line where Dana is like, man, I really want to kill Servalan, and Villa's like, oh, why? And he's like, oh shoot, I completely forgot about your father. And Dana's like, yeah, seems like Servalan has too. And I'm like, seems like everybody else who watched and worked on this show did as well.
Well, I don't know, I mean,
because when was the last time we had Hal mentioned was Volcano, when they were like, we're going to go see Hal's friends?
It was a couple weeks ago. I remember Dana had an opportunity to kill Servalan, and she was right there, and she couldn't do it. They brought Servalan onto the Liberator in Harvest of Kairos? I don't remember. Yeah, it was Harvest of Kairos. So like 5 episodes ago?
I don't remember Hal being mentioned in that.
Maybe Hal wasn't mentioned. Yeah, maybe you're right. But it was like, I think Dana comes in, she has a gun on Servalan, and she's like, they're like, put that thing down right now.
Because there's always other guards.
Yeah.
As well.
But yeah, you're right. Maybe Hal wasn't mentioned.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
But yeah, I've been looking forward to a showdown between Servalan and Dana for a long time, and I'm glad there's one in this episode, and I hope there's more next episode.
Well, the one in this episode gets completely neutered because Avon's like, if you kill Servalan, you'll mess everything up for all of us.
Right.
But we're not there yet. We're still at Avon confronting Servalan the first time. And yeah, they kiss, which surprised me.
This is actually also related to my "what would Blake do" moment, which, I think Blake would be there not to like watch and partake in this experience of watching these two guys battle it out, but to take down at least some of Servalan's ships.
Just zooming around, pew pew pew, while they're watching the battle, pew pew pew. Yeah, I can see that. Blake kind of just showing up and taking advantage of the fact that she's off guard, kind of. Yeah. My Blake's "what would Blake do" moment was going to be similar to that, but I decided on a different one. We also need to, I'm going to drop this in here because by saying it on the podcast, it puts pressure on ourselves to decide what we're going to do for Series D for that, since that's 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, we still don't have a thing for Series D.
We'll figure it out, though. So then also there's a scene where they're all kind of... It's kind of funny, actually. They cut to the Liberator and Villa's like chilling on the seat with the view screen on, and there's like all these bottles of like indeterminate liquid just on the table, just like dozens of bottles of what I assume to be like some sort of alcoholic drink.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, this is the life. Doing good.
I'm sure this is what Villa's always wanted to do since the beginning of Series C, really. Villa's like, all right, time for vacation, time to relax, and it's been a trend for him. There's
a couple funny lines where they're talking about how people killing each other has rather limited appeal, and Callie's all like, yeah, that would have rather limited appeal, and Avon's like, no, but there's also the whole carnival attitude and like whole carnival experience, and he's like, oh wait, that would also have rather limited appeal, wouldn't it? Well, which we see none of this carnival experience except for Villa, I guess, slamming back drinks on the Liberator, I guess. Well, that's right, because they beam down and they're like, hey, there's nothing here. And they beam back up and they're like, well, that's kind of weird. They also kind of explain the rules of competition, too. Yeah, I was going to mention, it's actually kind of hard putting these scenes in order because a lot of them feel a bit disconnected from one another. Well, they're very disconnected, actually. In my opinion, there's a scene where they explain the rules and they talk about how they have basically a computer simulation decides where they fight. So they're fighting in a computer simulation, a computer-generated area, and the computer doesn't decide where they fight till right before the battle, and the competitors don't know until they go out. It's actually very Hunger Games-esque. Yeah. I mean, obviously predates the Hunger Games. Of course. And the arbiters watch everything to make sure that they follow the rules. There's a line that like directly references Star Trek in this. Oh yeah, space. The Final Frontier, or so it used to be called. Is what they throw in right after that. And it was like, wow, little jab there. That was nice. Because they're talking about like one of the battlegrounds is like space, the Final Frontier, or so it used to be called. And but one weird thing about this competition is that one of the people gets to go in first. Yeah, by 60 seconds, I think. Yeah. Which you'd think would give them a massive advantage, just knowing the layout of the area for 60 seconds, before the other person even sees anything. Yes. That is a massive advantage. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, it's a huge advantage. Like, most of this battle is going to come down to your map knowledge, really. Yeah. Yep. Which comes down to, did you go in first or not? Because even if you don't explore the whole map, you'll know where you're fighting first. Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't get the logic behind doing this at all. What's the point of having one? Doesn't this just make it, because they want to have a fair game. Right. So doesn't this just make it completely unfair? Yes. Huh. Like, in my opinion, really it does. Yeah. So it's not really as fair as they say it is. Yeah. Even though they have all these rules and they have the arbiters and stuff, there's this one rule that just completely makes it not fair. Pretty much. They also explain, like, the losing side forfeits, like, a quarter of their land and ships to the winning side. This is when Avon's talking with the sponsor, I guess, or the Adidas, like, kind of captain dude, his coach. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, we forfeit a quarter of our ships and land. And he's like, really? And he's like, well, the other side agreed to it too. So it's just, that's how we fight war here. Like, we declare war, then we send our champions in and they fight, and then war is over. Really efficient way to fight a war, if you really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into like the cathartic experience of those patches a little bit later on. But I think they also explain sort of why Vinny is like a dark horse in this. I think because if I remember correctly, Dita knew who he thought the champion was going to be, but then Vinny came out of nowhere as the new champion. He was like, yeah, that's why he didn't know anything about Vinny.
Right. Which, when you find out what's going on there, is like, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
There's a scene where Dita and his coach, who I really should have like written down his name or something.
Oh, I didn't know his name either.
They kind of explain these patches. Dita...
Yeah, they have these circular sort of patches, really budget-friendly props, might I add. Because they're probably just little foam or paper patches.
With double-sided tape.
I don't think they even, I was going to mention that actually, I don't think they even have any kind of adhesive on them, because if you notice, the only time anyone is actually wearing these is when they're leaned back.
Possibly. That would be the real budget-saving measure. And it basically allows whoever wears the patch to watch the battle through the eyes of one of the two competitors, or from like an eye in the sky kind of cam.
Really? I think it was just because they had the green ones and the blue ones, and those colors corresponded to who you're watching it from.
Oh, because I thought Villa was just watching because when we see the Liberated crew later, they have Tarrant watch Dita and they have Dana watch Vinny, and Villa was watching as well, and I assume Villa was just watching like a general feed or something. Because they never really tell us what Villa was watching, so this is kind of an assumption on my part.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. They were definitely color-coded, though. Like, the green and blue definitely corresponded to one or the other.
I'm amazed you could even make out the colors on this. I couldn't tell they were that color-coded at all. But basically, yeah, the point of those is to let the people who are in the ships above the planet watch the battle.
Yeah, and this is where I think this episode has something really interesting in concept, right? Is like these are two societies who've gotten rid of war, but yet they connect that with this cathartic experience. Like, they say, all right, people need the cathartic experience of war, so we're going to give them that, on a mass scale, so we're going to give them that through these patches.
Well, it's more than that, because the patches don't just allow you to watch. They allow you to feel everything the person is feeling. When Dita is showing it to his coach, the coach is like, oh, I can feel the gun in my hand. I'm raising it now, pointing it at someone. Hey, is that what I really look like? Like, talking about how he can actually feel what's going on.
Right.
It's almost Purge-esque, this idea that you purge all your bad emotions, you'll be left with only good ones or whatever, right? Of course, in this, it happens like every 20 years or so. They go to war. Everybody slaps on these patches, these happy patches. They experience the battle of war through the champion, and then they're like, okay.
And it's not even... And this is where this episode gets kind of cerebral for me, is it's not even war as such. It's not even war as we know it. It's just it's two guys. It's like a one-on-one match.
Right. It's a battle of skills.
Right. And you think of you think back to the Roman gladiators and stuff like that, of mass amounts of people going to just watch two people kill each other, basically, or people get killed by animals. Mm-hmm. But then you also think of World War I and II, and the unspeakability of that, soldiers who came back from war. World War I especially is known for having a lot of poetry and just literature in general come out of it.
Right.
But there's something different about that movement than there was from really any previous war. These World War I and II, there's things that are so different in those two wars from any previous war, that what comes out of that is so totally different and not cathartic and really actually traumatic. And that's the thing. That's really what I'm trying to get at here, is they're trying to give people this cathartic experience, but is it cathartic in the sense that it's like a release, or is it traumatic in the sense that it's something that is going to stay with you and is going to keep recurring and that can't be released and that can't be paradoxically can't be returned to, but also has to be returned to.
Right.
And I don't know. And I didn't think the episode was great enough for me to like really think about that too much, but it's an interesting point.
I don't think the episode really goes into that either, because the whole point of the episode is the fact that they freaking cheat, which I was going to say, because,
Yeah,
you know,
they do
out of
kinda
World
just-
War One and World War Two come the rules of warfare, like no attacking civilians, no using biological warfare. Things like that come out of World War One and Two. They were kind of like unwritten before that, but once you get the Geneva Convention where they write them down and these people like sign these agreements, like we're not going to use biological warfare, we're not going to attack civilians, like the rules of warfare like get codified.
Right. Well, like you think like the history of at least European war. Yeah, right. It's like these unwritten rules, right? Like two sides marching onto a field, and there are all these not regulations, but they're just these customs and rituals to it. And then once this new technology shows up, and there's so many like new ways to kill people on a mass scale. No, really. I mean, that's definitely part of what it is.
And the story kind of touches on that too, because it's got all these rules that everybody follows. That all the arbiters can bring up these rules, and the challengers can bring up these rules, and like Orac lists out all these rules that they can use to do this thing. Like, there's all these rules designed to just make this battle like fair.
But there's one rule that just
there's one rule that just throws that out the window.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you can read accounts of it, and the history of it online and stuff is like, you know, in World War One, there are people. World War One is actually really interesting because it, depending on how technologically inclined the army or like even the particular like unit was, things play out really differently. I mean, you have like tanks going up against like dudes on horses, and you have like machine guns going up against like bayonets.
World War One was a big clash of technology. World War One's the first war in which like airplanes were really a big like aspect of the war. Was like the war in the skies with the airplanes, the Red Baron, you know. So that was the other thing too. Like people were at different periods technologically with airplanes, because every country was like, no, we're not going to share our technology with you. So like every airplane was like all sorts of all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, nationalism is a huge part of World War One as well, and maybe not so much in this, because they've come to this agreement, like, all right, we're going to respect this other planet enough to have this competition, but still, I mean, they're choosing champions.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I do think the episode kind of just brings this stuff up and then just goes nowhere with them, or
goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
Really, because basically what happens is Dita gets brutally murdered by Vinny, because he basically could shoot Vinny in the back, but then he's like, no. Accede to his request to do like an old school style shootout.
Yep.
Because we forgot there's a scene where like Dita investigates the guns Servalan has provided. He's like, no two guns are exactly the same. And Vinny is quicker than Dita, kills him. There's this really, really cool shot when Dita's dying. It's in slow motion, but it's not like the crappy slow motion where you take a regular speed footage and then you just slow it down and it looks like bad because it's like half the frame rate of the rest of the episode. This is like actually filmed in slow motion, I think, and it looks really, really cool because the background kind of fades to black as Dita's like falling, so it's just Dita falling in this kind of almost dark void as he's like falling over and dying.
Yeah, you know, I didn't notice that. You'll have to go back.
And then it's intercut with like the reaction from like Deli's like, no, and then you see Dita like falling again in slow motion as the background continues to fade to just black, and then he falls down. Then we get this like point of view shot, which was kind of weird, of Dita looking up at the sky. So point of view shot from the ground looking up at the top of the warehouse the computer decided to have him fight in.
Was it a warehouse? To me, it looked like kind of just a ruined cityscape, almost.
Yeah, possibly. And he says like, oh, sorry, Del, I just couldn't do it. Then Dita shoots him in the face. Or Vinny, walks up, shoots Dita in the face. Then Avon...
You gotta imagine like the people who are hooked into Dita,
like Del,
get shot in the face, get the full experience of it.
Well, so then they all take off their patches, and Orac was also monitoring the whole battle. And he asks them what's going on. And Dana says, like, Vinny felt really weird. And they're like, what? She's like, yeah, he felt like he never was scared. He always knew that whatever shot was fired at him, he could shoot quicker. and he had like no instincts. It was just all kind of mechanical. And then Aurak basically says or postulates or proves, I don't remember exactly what, that Vinny was an android, and he says that now Servalan has ordered a medical examination. Due to some obscure rule, the neutral arbiter can order a medical examination of the winner, I guess to check for like performance-enhancing drugs or something. And Aurak basically says that as soon as they find out that Vinny's an android, the two sides will like actually go to war and fight each other.
Right.
And then Avon realizes this was Servalan's plan all along.
Right. So they got to stop it.
This is my what would Blake do moment. So Blake wouldn't really care because at this point, for clarification, Avon decides to send Del in to fight Vinny, to wipe out Vinny. At this point, like I think Blake would just be so focused on Servalan. Like, what if we just kill Servalan? That'll remove all like... That'll remove any problem, right? Like, just kill Servalan, and then Servalan's not going to get a medical examination, and then, like, bing, bang, bongo, we win.
Yeah, you also got to remember, Blake won't rest until power is back in the hands of the honest man. And were the two sides really being honest? Well, maybe the I forget which side is which. Was Teal the one with
Teal's
Dita?
The one with Dita.
Yeah, Teal was, but Vandor, you know, maybe isn't so honest.
Well, I think they are, because I think that's the thing is that Avon or Aurak says that Servalan built the android and gave it to Vandor.
Okay, yeah.
And that's why, like, Dita didn't know who the champion was, because it was just that it was actually came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, and they didn't know that Vinny was an android. Vinny doesn't even know he's an android, because they say when they take him to the medical examination, Vinny's just going to act like a human because that's what he thinks he is.
Right, yeah. Remembering all this stuff now. But due to some, like, other loophole type, not loophole, but just something you can do.
Well, so it's just another rule that because Del is Dita's brother, he can declare a blood feud and go into combat again with Vinny.
They go into the details of this like pretty deep. They're like, all right, normally you wouldn't be able to do this, but since you're Dita's brother, you can, or something like that.
They send Dana over to confront Servalan and basically keep her at bay while they do this plan.
Dana's probably the worst person to go and do that. And honestly,
works out fine, though.
I mean, it works out fine, but, like, yeah, Dana is like, she even mentions it. I think she even has a line like, did you guys forget that Servalan killed my father? Like, am I going to be able to restrain myself when I have Servalan at gunpoint? Mm-hmm. Or maybe I'm just making that line up.
And Avon's like, you better. You're going to mess it all up for us if you don't. She just kind of goes in, holds Servalan at gunpoint for a bit, and then gets kicked out and beams back.
Here's why this scene is funny, though, because it brought up something to me that I've never even thought of before, and that makes a Liberator crew really, really powerful if they are able to use this correctly, is that they can just teleport down anywhere, like shoot someone, and then just teleport back up.
Yeah.
In seconds.
Yeah.
And they never really do that.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even have to exchange any words. They just, like, bam, teleport down, shoot, teleport right back up.
Well, they can't teleport to some places, like there was the place in Moloch, actually.
Yeah.
Because of the magic shield.
I mean, yeah, of course some places are limited and some places are harder to teleport to than others probably, but, like, if they're able to use this tactic well, like, they could be a pretty powerful force.
Yeah, but they don't.
But anyway,
I mean, they don't.
Yeah.
And why don't they? I don't really know, actually. Maybe they haven't thought of it. Maybe they're not quick enough on the teleport to do that.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe Zen won't let them. Maybe there's like a cooldown period on the teleport, so they wouldn't be able to teleport out immediately.
Yeah, probably. I did like this scene, though. I liked the confrontation between Servalan and Dana, even though it wasn't too in-depth.
Yeah.
It was nice that they're actually touching on it.
Mm-hmm. Because she's like, imagine what my father felt moments before you killed him. Servalan's like...
I forget what
that's what Servalan's like. No, she just does this.
Oh. All right. I definitely think Dana has...
Evolved.
I think between Dana and Del, Dana is definitely the character who's gone more places and they've done more with this season. With Del, we get a little bit of this.
Well, all we get from Del is that Del's a pretty bad leader.
I take that back, actually. Del has had a lot, too.
They've definitely both got a lot.
I just like Dana
I think
more.
everybody's got a lot this season, actually. Like, I think this season's been a pretty good spread of development for everyone.
Yeah.
That's something I'm going to talk about next week, probably.
Yeah, we can save a lot of that for next week. Anyway, Tarrant enters the competition again. This time the battlefield...
With cheats.
Hacks.
Well, with 2 hacks, because 1, Orax hacked into the computer to find out where they're going to fight before they actually get revealed, and 2, Callie's giving him telepathic information based on where they're going to fight.
Yeah, this time the battlefield is literally just like a
space
walkway.
Station.
It's just, but it's a mini walkway on a space station. I don't know if I was just...
I assumed it was laid out like Space City, like a big ring. And because Callie tells him to get to the center of the space station down the corridor, so that was just my assumption.
Yeah,
maybe it's just a straight corridor between the 2 entrance points.
That's what I thought, but you're probably right.
Anyway, they're like, oh, Del can't shoot Vinny in the back. And I'm like, Del's going to die the same way Dita did, you idiot.
Tarrant also has an advantage that adheres to the rules in that he's the one who goes in first.
He also has a third advantage, which apparently also adheres to the rules, that he has Dana's gun on him, which is actually a little confusing considering they had those like specially made guns that were supposed to be identical in the first one. But anyway.
First
battle.
You're right, yeah.
But yeah, Del has the erase someone from existence gun, which completely erases every trace of Vinny, just completely vaporizes him.
Yeah, there's a funny way they introduce this, like, is it ready? And Dana's like, oh, it's ready, or something like that.
And then they kind of beam out, and then they just kind of explain everything to, I guess, Dita's coach. They're like, oh yeah, so Vinny was an android. They weren't following the rules, but we've killed him now, so the medical examination won't take place. You should use your veto. Apparently, every coach gets a veto to choose a new neutral arbiter. You should just run the battle again since both champions are dead. Ask for a rematch, basically. Ask for medical examinations before the battle starts.
And then good luck.
And then he runs off and he's like, I'll be right back. And then Avon's like, we should go now. And Tarrant's like, why? He said he'll be right back. And Avon said, ah, yes, Orax told me about this other thing. Since you won the battle, that makes you champion of Teal now. And Tarrant's like, ah. And then together, in the sitcom-y moment, again, they both in unison say, Callie, I don't remember exactly the lines, like, Callie, bring us back up now.
Yeah.
Or Callie, I think we're coming home now, or something like that. In unison, and then it cuts straight to the credits.
Yep. Well, it was always Chris Boucher who loved those sitcom-y endings. I mean, it's been really most writers for the show, but Chris Boucher definitely is part of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still think what I thought when I watched this episode last night.
I watched it last night too. So.
Which is that there's a ton of build up and then just a couple minutes of payoff. Really, it feels like it's all just this rising action to like something that's not worthy of like 48 minutes of rising action.
Right.
I mean, the ending was good, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The battle was good with Tarrant, killing Vinny in the way that his brother couldn't, face to face instead of shooting in the back with cheats.
With hacks.
And the confrontation between Dana and Servalan is something I've been waiting for a while.
Although that was resolved kind of underwhelmingly because they just beamed Dana out and she's like, I just got kicked out.
Yeah, which is why, again, I hope they touch on it again next week. But at the same time, it just feels underwhelming for how much they built it up and how long all of that was.
Right. Yeah, because this whole episode was like building, like setting down the rules. Here's what's going to happen. Building. And then 5 minutes. It's the whole resolution happens in 5 minutes. I think like the actual battle between Dita and Vinny starts legitimately 10, at most 15 minutes before the end of the story.
Definitely.
Which in a 50-minute story, that means 35 minutes of the story was just build up, at least. Closer to 40. And
most Blake 7 episodes really have an A plot and a B plot, less so in Series C, but most of them are like, you build up for 20, 25 minutes and then you get something, and then they go and do something else for the next however long.
Right. And this one's just, it's all A plot kind of, and then it's all just build up, and then release. The release wasn't that great.
Yeah, kind of like the cathartic experience of like being in this death match. Wasn't that great?
I mean, how would you know? You weren't in this death match, were you?
But I felt like I was. It was so realistically shot.
Was
And
it?
no, I'm kidding. No.
Was it? I was
No.
going to say, what? So I think we're going against the grain. I think the story was all right. I wouldn't call it bad.
No, I wouldn't call it bad either. Just a little questionable in how it was all done.
I think if it just was reorganized a bit, maybe if they had the battle between Dina and Vinny set over the whole course of the episode, and then they intercut the Liberator into that, I think that would have worked better. I think I would have enjoyed that more. Because it would have been like there's this battle, and then you would have like these two... It'd be like this battle is trying to be fair. The way I'm envisioning it is that this is battle, and they're trying to keep it fair, but there's these two like forces in the shadows, behind the scenes, pulling the strings, the Liberator crew and Servalan trying to like sway the battle.
Kind of like Duel, actually. Could have made it a little more similar to that,
Yeah, could have made it like Duel, but instead of having like Blake and Jenna on the planet as part of the battle, it's like someone who's not even part of the Liberator crew, who they're just using for their own purposes.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. I don't know if that would have been better. I'm envisioning it to be better, but I don't know if it would have actually been better.
It's all in the execution.
This is true. I don't have anything else to say on this story.
Yep, that's it from me.
We have an email from RG to respond to in this episode. So it begins, it's the subject line is Deathwatch. Hi, Zenith Teleport operators. So every girl's wish comes true this week when they give us 2 tenants. Dita could really do with some hair grooming tips from Del. Callie sticks it to Villa, which is starting to happen a lot more. Dana continues to stick it to Villa. Poor Villa. No wonder he wrestled all those drinks up so quickly. Hey, let's all get off the Liberator for a holiday. Next minute, on second thought, let's not. Who does Avon kiss this week? Servalan. I'm still trying to work out why on earth they kissed. My husband said if you were Avon, why wouldn't you? Fair point. Frankly, I don't know why they kissed. I didn't figure it out either. So unfortunately, we're not the podcast that's going to answer that question. Notice the Liberator crew saying that Dana is a natural warrior. The line where Villa asks what her lost slave died of really wouldn't have worked if the show was shot in the US. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that.
Yeah, that line did stick out to me as well. I don't know why I didn't mention it.
I didn't mention it.
Forgot about it, actually, I think.
Yeah, I forgot about it too, but just for context for someone listening to this, Avon and Dana tell Villa to go do something, and then he responds with, well, wait, what happened to your lost slave? How did your lost slave die? And then he goes off to go do it.
Right. And I mean, look, Britain likes to, well, I don't want to like generalize or whatever, but like, I feel like just based on what I've read, and this isn't even contemporary stuff, this is like maybe 19th century stuff, is like Britain likes to ignore the fact that they
had
slaves
too.
Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, isn't a justification in any way for slavery of any kind.
Right.
It's just something I've noticed, like, in British stuff, is like, it's more okay to, one, call out.
Well, because...
Or I don't know, actually. I don't know.
I'm just theorizing here, but that might be because, the U.S. imported slaves on U.S. territory, whereas, Britain was a big empire, so a lot of it was like, I guess more of it was spread over the empire than like actually in England proper.
Huh.
Not that like excuses any of it, again, because Britain still had slaves. Like, people like to ignore the fact that they literally subjugated India for like decades. South Africa, like, Britain had slaves.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel, maybe, again, this is just a theory, I don't know, but maybe people feel disconnected from it because, again, it was overseas. It was just part of the British Empire, like, over there.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So, But yeah, that line did stick out to me. And also them saying that Dana's a natural warrior. Avon is like, you're watching Vinny because you're a warrior, Dana. We need your warrior spirit on this. This is Steven Pacey's favorite episode because he has so much to do in it. I thought the initial scene was very good, dropping us right in the action. Down and safe, RG.
Thanks.
Thank you for emailing us. I think you pointed out a lot of the same things we did when we noticed, when we watched this episode.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So we talked about a lot of that stuff already in the episode. But thank you for emailing us again, as always. We also have an email from who is quickly becoming a regular correspondent, joining the likes of RG and Sergeant Drano, is Carl from Sydney. He sends us an email, the subject line being Vale Serverland, Latin for goodbye, Serverland.
I just read it as Vale, like Valley.
It's Vale. Nathan will be pleased to hear that I got that pronunciation correct.
But Nathan from Flight Through entirety?
Yeah, he's a Latin teacher.
Yeah, I know he's a Latin teacher.
Anyway, I belong to a generation who were in the mid-teens, who were mesmerized and could not get enough of Serverland. After aligning my 40th anniversary rewatch to your podcast, it has been great to see how much you and other fans have enjoyed her performances. So I was very affected by her death, as I'm sure you must be. Moloch and Deathwatch were not her best, but that's the fault of the script. My funniest moment from Ultraworld, which I think you missed, when Dana's tooth bomb detonated, the explosion was heard in the Ultra control room. One of the silver blue Ultras quietly asked, "Was that the mating ritual?" I actually didn't notice that when I was watching it, but I didn't bring it up in the episode that we recorded on it. And also, we should mention that, yes, Jacqueline Pierce has rather unfortunately passed away. She passed away actually before last week's episode went out, but after we had already recorded everything to it, so we didn't put anything in there about it. But, you know, I'm not one to make a joke out of someone's death, but does kind of prove the point that it seems that our podcasts kill off people, since people tend to die right after we mention them on the podcast. Jacqueline Pierce is not the first.
No. And I think that's actually been more the case on Triple Play, if I remember. Or
Trust Your Doctor.
Well, Trust Your Doctor, I guess, when we get to a certain story that a certain, that various, actors have been in, and it comes out that they die soon after.
But, I was sad to hear of her passing because she was still acting right up until her final moments, and she is one of the best characters and actresses on this show. So
yeah, definitely. And
I really do think that she partially made this show what it was.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I didn't know this until articles started coming out about her death and stuff. But I didn't know that Serverland was originally supposed to be a one-off character, and that she was incorporated into the show as a recurring character because of Jacqueline Pierce.
Right.
Basically.
Thankfully. And that's one of the best decisions that they made on the show, frankly. And so, yeah, really sad to hear about her death. And just wanted to put something in here about it. And thank you, Kyle, for emailing us once again.
Yep.
Joining in the correspondence. And if you would like to join the correspondence, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Steven Pacey and the rules of warfare. It's the name of my new book, Steven Pacey and the Rules of Warfare.
It can be a sequel to that one that starts with Avon coming out of the BDSM chamber. Actually, it can be that one.
Okay. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Zenith, a Blake's 7 podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you liked the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Terminal, but until then, the end.